Welcome to Hochoka Podcast.
Native American elders advise, go among the standing people. This is a reminder that plants can be our caretakers, healers, teachers, and guides. Their intelligences other than our own. Imagine how less lonely the world would be if we knew and believed that we didn't have to figure everything out by ourselves. Hello, Midakiepi, and welcome to Hochoka here at the center of St. Joseph's Indian Schools campus. I'm Scott Wooster, your Hochoka host. We're glad you've joined our circle with Monique Gray-Smith, award-winning author, speaker, and professional consultant. Smith is Cree, Lakota, and Scottish. She lives with her family on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen and Wasanich peoples, known also as Victoria, British Columbia. So Monique, a warm welcome from Hochoka for you.
Kinanaskomotin and Tanse and Dotimak. Mitaninaskamo, thank you for having me as a guest. I am the granddaughter on my mom's side of Noel Cardinal and Isabel Gray of Papikassis First Nation. And on my dad's side, I'm the granddaughter of Raymond Smith and Beatrice Johnstone. And in 3 generations back, Lakota grandmother named Martha Gertrude Fabranks. So I'm grateful to be a guest here today on these beautiful traditional lands, to have woken up by the Missouri River, to hear the ducks wake me up this morning, to see the beautiful sunrise, and to feel the love that is on these lands and here on this beautiful campus.
Yeah.
Grateful to be with you this morning.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the introduction. And with you also, we have my wife, Native American Studies lead teacher, Lorraine Wooster, and you have an introduction of your own.
Washte, Midaku Yepi, Dayaya Hipi, welcome to Lakotia, Makha, our Lakota lands. Lorraine Emachiapi, Sichanguo Yanke Mataha. I'm from the Burnt Thigh Nation of the Rosebud Sioux tribe. And my grandmother on my mom's side is Nellie Brave Boy Andrews. And so that is my lineage from my mom's side. And on my dad's side, I am Irish and Scotch and some other different backgrounds, but I love diving into this Lakota earthly traditions that you are about. So welcome.
You.
Awesome, ladies. So when we learned that you were going to be coming here to campus, Monique, we wanted to make the most of the opportunity. You're going to be talking to our students and our staff as you spend time here. Spring is in the air. Here we are in the spring, and what better place to hold space and to have a visit, as I said in the introduction, about the standing people, our plant relatives. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think spring for me has 4 letters, and that's hope. Right? Because we might plant in the fall tulips, garlic, onions, other elements, other beings. And then they come to life above the ground in the spring. The spring always reminds us that even in the darkness, light does come. And so I'm really grateful to be with you in the spring, in a time when hope is hopefully being felt across these beautiful lands.
Yeah. And I like this idea of the standing people. What does that idea mean to you, the standing people?
For me, it means the witnesses. Where I live, on those beautiful territories that you talked about, I live just like barely a block from the forest. And I go into that forest and, let those cedar boughs brush off of me what I don't need to carry anymore. And the ferns, they catch those tears. And the Gary oaks, I stand underneath them and watch, some of their skin in some ways coming off. And it reminds me that we can lose our skin, or we can lose part of what we think is important to us, and yet we can still stand strong. And so there's much that those standing beings, remind me of. It's interesting you asked that question, because in my family we just had a recent health diagnosis that kind of like rattled our world. And Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, sent me a text and literally said to me, go to the forest, they have medicine for you. So that's what the standing people have, right?
Yeah.
They're witnesses and they have medicine for us.
Yeah. Wonderful.
That's beautiful to talk about how the plants are medicine. And a goal for me in our conversation is to pass on our Indigenous wisdom to our students and their families. So if you could ground our conversation by opening up for us what your adapted text in Braiding Sweetgrass calls for in the grammar of animacy.
The grammar of animacy. Oh, I think this is one of the most poignant teachings in the whole book. It got moved right to the very beginning. It's like, 5 paragraphs in. It is about a worldview of seeing the world as living beings. So, for example, the example that's in the book is if I go to the library and I see my friend studying. If you're there studying, Lorraine, I don't say to Scott, "It's studying," right? You are a being, so you have a pronoun, or your name, Lorraine. But in English, almost everything is nouns, right? Because they're objects. In our languages, or most of our languages are verb languages. They're alive. So the grammar of animacy allows the word kin to be used. You are our kin as the pronoun. So that when I see a tree, I don't say it. It's just like I wouldn't call you it. Because as soon as I say it to the tree, it makes it an object. It makes it a noun. It's like if I said, I'm going to harm Lorraine in some way. If I call you an it, I can do that in a different way because you're an object. I'm not in relationship with you. Right. So if I call the tree an it, it's easy for me to cut it down because I'm not in relationship with it. I don't see that it has been a mutual beneficial to me. I just see that it has benefit. So when we talk about kin, that grammar of animacy holds up the dignity of living beings. It says that our relatives are not its. They are kin. We are related. So in the book there's the example, the kin are flying south. The geese are flying south. And in that then, when we have a relationship with those beings, how we care for them changes.
Right.
And that's really, I think, an important part of this grammar of animacy way of looking at the world, is that when I care for, then I also get cared for. And it's not that I just care for because then I know I'm going to get cared for. I care for because I love and because I want to nourish. It's like those trees that I talked about that brush me off when I go in. So then when I go in and I need to harvest cedar, I lay down tobacco and ask. And I don't go to the first tree. And I don't take it all. And I only take what I need or I'm going to give away. Because we're in relationship. But if I didn't have a relationship, I might go in with a big saw and take as much as I need or want or think I could sell.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a bigger definition of the grammar of animacy.
And when you use the word kin, there's a comparison to Lakota language, because when you say kin, I'm thinking ki, which in our language, in Lakota language, means something of a, an, or the. So, for example, if we talk about cedar, you would say Hante ki, the cedar. But it also spells kin. Ki and kin, just that correlation. And in my mind, I think, wow, that it's powerful.
It is.
And they are. They're our relatives, whether they're standing or they're plants, and trying to teach that to kids. And people, all not just kids, but all people. They're our relatives, and it's beautiful that grammar of animacy to understand our standing relatives that way.
And I think it's like when I think about, I have a little nephew who's 3, and he loves the trees, right? Like they're just in awe of these beings, and then somewhere something shifts. And then the noun language kicks in, right? And the relationality changes. So sometimes when I think about educating hearts and minds and spirits, it's about reminding when we were little about being like in the forest and just exploring and loving all these beings that are there. and not seeing them as objects.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that, teaching with the Lakota language.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as you guys are talking, I'm struck by the connection. Of course, the land I would expect to be connected. I think about that. Whether you're from Oklahoma or whether you're from South Dakota, or whether you're from an island off the coast of Canada, it's all connected. But so are the Indigenous people. So are the languages and the way they thought about things and the way they things. There I am using that kind of language too. But the point is that it's all connected, which makes sense to me. Another thing that we could talk about too is the idea from the book that the cure grows near the cause. Guide that conversation.
So, for example, if you're out and poison ivy finds you or sumac finds you, your elders probably have teachings around, or your medicine people would know what medicine grows near there that would help to heal whatever has just harmed you. And so I think about that a lot, that when we think that something in the universe, and I don't mean that kind of metaphorically, but this world we live in harms us, but the cure might be right beside us. So somebody might, if we think about this in the classroom or our homes, somebody might be having a not so good day and they say unkind words to me, but sitting right beside me might also be somebody very kind. Or I could be in the forest and something harms me, and right beside me or down the path is the cure. But it's about us beginning to understand more and more of what is living around us and what were those old teachings. And sometimes we think that those teachings are so far back, how do we bring them forward? But the beauty is, just like the traumas that are in our cells epigenetically, the memory of our medicines, the memory of our stories, the memory of our songs, the memory of our love, actually it chokes me up, or is also in our epigenetic memory. And so when we're in ceremony, or if we're sitting outside on the land and we've made an offering, or we're sitting by the river, we can ask for guidance to help us know what would be the cure.
Yeah, for sure. It makes me think, and Lorraine will know this too, of a student that we used to work with, and we were at Sundance, and he was real susceptible to poison ivy, and so he would get covered in just sores or welts all over, whatever. I don't even know how to describe it, but all over his body. And they wouldn't go to Lewis Drug, the pharmacy, to go get the cure for it. They would find something that came from that land right there, probably grew next to the poison ivy, and he'd be covered with like a poultice from that, and it just speaks to your point. And I have to throw this out there because I think you kind of went there a little bit too, but as a counselor who works here, you sort of made a metaphor between the way plants that are close to us heal us, but also, and I know it's a little off track, but the people close to us heal us too. So as a counselor, when a student's been hurt by somebody, they come and talk to somebody they trust, and it doesn't have to be a counselor, but it's the plants are also, that's the metaphor for what we can do as humans too, which
Totally. And we can also help our children and young people understand that they can go and talk to the trees, right? It's that beautiful quote in Braiding Sweetgrass and Braiding Sweetgrass for Young Adults that says, imagine how less lonely the world would be if we knew and believed we didn't have to figure everything out by ourselves. And for me, in the times that I go to the forest almost every day, but in the days that I really need nourishment, that's where I get it. And yes, I do Western medicine counseling also, right? But it's the beings that help to heal in a different way.
Absolutely.
I love those parts of your book too, just it's there. It is all there, and we have it here on campus for our kids. They walk by it every day too.
How blessed.
I try to explain to them, like you said, with the cause is there. Our medicines were all there, whether it was the leaf or the stem or the roots or the flowering part. There's a cure for everything on earth somewhere. Our ancestors made sure of that. Our Creator made sure of that. So,
can I just say quickly, there's a beautiful, because when you said that, it made me think about our geniusness. that we are geniuses. That's a breaking a stereotype in society about us as people. There's a really beautiful book by an author named Peggy Janiski, and it's a story about her grandmother going to residential school and her learning about sewing from her great-grandmother before she went to school, and how when they were in school, they were hungry. And so she sewed pockets on the inside of her dress, and they would take food from the kitchen, and they would give it to the ones who were the most hungry. And then over generations, she taught Peggy to sew, and that's what sustained Peggy and her family. And the last 3 lines of the book are, we were geniuses, we are geniuses, we will always be geniuses. And I think sometimes that's what our children need to know.
Absolutely.
Is they come from legacies of geniuses.
Yeah.
And in them is that knowledge of the genius.
Yes. I've had that conversation with my mom, who's a boarding school survivor, and she talked about taking food and sharing it and keeping it. So I'm going to have to ask her if she sewed pockets in her dresses and clothes and how, but she said she didn't get caught and get in trouble. But that was one of the things too. Geniuses found a way to get by, and yes, awesome. In your adapted text, another key point that you say is the honorable harvest. And we do that here on campus. We have lots of different plants. We have mint, we have chokecherry trees, we have cedar, and we have sage and sweetgrass. And so teaching the students about that honorable harvest is important, to the point where I say, I want you to be able to teach somebody else this. But could you explain that honorable harvest practice to our audience in your words, please?
Maybe I'll just actually open this. There's a brief illustration that Nicole Neidhart did with some of the key principles. So I'll just read them. And then in the book, each principle has like a story that goes with it. Never take the first. Ask permission. Listen for the answer. Take only what you need. Minimize harm. Use everything you take. Share. Be grateful. And reciprocate the gift. So for me, and what I've been taught is, before we even go out, so for example, my wife just went up to visit our daughter, and so I harvested some cedar for her to take. So I go and I offer tobacco. Yes. I don't go to the first tree, I offer tobacco, and then I go to a few trees and offer tobacco for her to be able to cleanse her home in Kamloops. And I think about, when it says ask permission, if you go berry picking and you're picking those berries and they're not coming off, you've asked permission and they're setting a boundary with you. They're saying, nope, not yet. But if you pick them and you bring them home, you need a lot of sugar to make jam that's edible or palpable. It's the same in relationships. When we set boundaries with each other, if we don't listen, it takes a lot for repair. So the plants and this honorable harvest can teach us about how do we care for our harvesting, but also how do we care for our relationships as humans, right? Never cause harm. Sometimes our words, depending on the day we're having, but then how do we repair that? If we repair it, then it makes things stronger. It's just like also in Breeding Sweetgrass for Young Adults, there's a beautiful chapter around harvesting sweetgrass. And the places where the sweetgrass isn't harvested, it begins to die off.
Yes.
Because it needs to be, it's come as a gift. Like this beautiful gift you brought me.
Yeah.
She's come as a gift. And so if we don't harvest her, then she's like, why am I here?
Why should I grow anymore?
Right?
Yeah. Yes. I get that too, and I try to teach all of those points to our kids. Yes,
what a gift you're giving them, because it was in my recovery that I began to learn all this and remembered them from how I was raised, but they weren't explicitly taught. And I think for children and young people to learn these, wow, we're you and this school are just setting them up for success in such powerful ways. And I don't mean just success in the Western world, right? But like that way of living that feels good.
Yes. Yeah, whether it's a tea or you burn it, or let's find a way to help this heal us, and I encourage them to do that as a home. So we do it in class, and then the kids go home to their homes here on campus, and I say, when you need this, it's there. You can take your home and harvest this and make your own tea and have it every day, hot, cold, or burn, and use it as an incense. And so, yes.
What a gift for them.
Mm-hmm. And some of them get it from home. Some of them learn those lessons at home, but not all of them. And so I think it's important that we do this here on campus. And because they learn it. They learn how to live in that interaction with the natural world. But it also brings healing to this campus too, in a place where you couldn't do anything in the past that had anything to do with the culture. Now you've got kids sleeping with sage under their pillows, which is a beautiful thing.
I also think about those who might not have learned it at home, that maybe they go home and share it, right?
Yeah.
And in there is that intergenerational healing that, for whatever reason, those adults in the house, parents or grandparents or aunties, uncles, weren't given that gift or didn't remember the gift.
Yeah.
And now the child is coming home, and I mean, what a beautiful...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Some of our students say, I go sage picking with my grandma, or they'll say, oh yeah, we have some of that out behind our house. Now this summer I'm going to go harvest it, or I'm going to take my family back there. So yes, it's a healing, part of healing.
Yeah, there are teachers.
Yeah.
We've said that before. We talked about kin. We talked about cure grows near the cause. We've talked about the honorable harvest. Let's talk about soul deep fusion with the land, which is quite a notion. Lorraine, this Indigenous wisdom kind of calls us to have that. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. I work with our two specific men on campus that are part of our grounds crew, and they love plants. They have that knowledge. And so we talk about Indigenous plants, how they're calling us to be a part of this campus. So we have, like I said, sage and sweetgrass and cedar that grow on campus. We have mint, choke cherries, and we have a new area by our equine therapy center that we're going to develop. And so between our programs, our grounds crew, our school, our child services department, we're going to be creating a space for these plants. And they're close to our inipi, or our prayer lodge. And so we use some of the plants in ceremony, as you are aware. But we have an opportunity to think about other plants. And we have this whole space that we're going to build. So from that perspective, do you have any suggestions on what maybe we can add to our space?
Well, one that you might think about is tobacco, to grow tobacco. One for ceremony for sure, but also she's beautiful when she's in bloom. And the beautiful thing, one of the things I learned is like when those little flowers come, if you pick them off and just drop them, that those flowers then become like medicine for the leaves to get bigger. Oh. Isn't that beautiful? Like when you think, isn't that beautiful? The other might be sunflowers. And the reason why is there's so many teachings that when the sunflower actually begins to become a flower, it follows the sun during the day. And so with children, you can help them to learn on the dark days, who's your sunshine? Yes. It can be yourself, but who or where do you go to find some light? Because that flower finds the light and tracks the light. And in the world we live in, there is darkness for sure.
Yes.
So if we can help children understand the importance of finding light through a plant. The other might be Labrador, or to make Labrador tea or kinnikinnick. Because Labrador tea, I think, is one of the most important medicines for our people because it can be supportive for those with diabetes. It can help blood sugar. And we know diabetes is an epidemic in our communities. And if we look at it simply from a place of trauma, We know that when we experience trauma or we get triggered back to a trauma or our epigenetics comes, the first 2 chemicals that get released in our body increase our blood sugar, which helps us to understand why diabetes is an epidemic in our community, simply from a place of trauma. Labrador tea is also really good for asthma or respiratory illnesses. And in our communities, respiratory illnesses are almost always a challenge. And part of that is because our lungs hold grief. And when we look at our history, there are a lot of places where there has been grief. And not all individuals or families or communities have had the ability yet to do a lot of that healing for the lungs. So Labrador tea, just on the pot to have available all the time, or as a cold drink, is a really beautiful one. It likes to sort of be around water, so you might have to create a little water something there.
Sure.
But then you invite the dragonflies.
Yes.
And in my teachings, the dragonflies are the gatekeepers to the dream world.
Yes.
So then, you have all these conversations about who shows up when we plant.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of those intertwine. That's beautiful. Those are great ideas.
And one of the things I really love about Labrador tea is that you could have it, at the entrance to classes or schools. The children harvest it, the students harvest it. It's medicine, you can drink it any time. It also helps with tummy issues. And then they're like drinking what they've helped to harvest and
Yes. Yes. And when you say tobacco, natural tobacco.
create. Yes.
Which
Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
Because my first thought is, we don't allow tobacco on
Yeah,
campus.
right.
Yeah.
But natural tobacco, which we grow at our house, and I harvest it from our house. So yes, that's in the plans to add. And I like that you
Wonderful.
said sunflower, because you don't always think of that as. I think of it more as a colonial plant, so to speak. But in the comparison to somebody as your sunflower and you follow the sun is amazing. Love
I'm
that.
really curious with your tobacco, what color are the flowers?
Yellow. Yeah. Yep. They're
So
yellow or white.
Yes, me
Yep.
too. But I have a friend of mine, her name is Lori Goodluck. Some of you will know she writes beautiful books. Rock Your Mocks, Forever Cousins. And her husband grows tobacco, and the flowers are purple. I
Oh,
was like, oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun to pick, and we've had that on campus, and so we plan to bring that back as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And we're talking, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I love that teaching too, right, with the pods when they've dried, and then you open, and then there's all these little seeds. And when I do this in classes, I say, like, this is us, like, we come, and then all these little seeds are our gifts. We don't just come with one gift, we come with, like, a bounty of gifts.
Yes.
And then they see, like, that tiny, tiny seed made this plant. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a scientific teaching, indigenous teaching, all blended together.
For sure.
Yeah, and we could absolutely talk for days and days about this. I don't think any of the three of us would have any problem with it, but we should probably wrap up at this point and just say that what a gift we have of this natural world that we have here on campus to teach these kids. And when they built the Equine Center, and they had to move the Inipi grounds, they had to a lot of natural world was taken. It was moved. It was cut. The trees were cut down, all sorts of things. And we're in the process of watching that stuff get to blossom. So our kids or plant and blossom. So our kids are getting ready to see that process. And I think from what you say, we want them on the front line of watching that happen. And I think you're in a position where you can help that happen, which is great.
Yep. Working together with all our programs on campus, I think we'll have a beautiful indigenous garden.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So we'll end it there, but I just want to say thank you to both of you for that conversation, for sharing your knowledge, what you have, and teaching us to live in harmony with everything around us. So thank you very much.
Upila.
And we say Wopila to our audience for joining us here at Ho-Chokeh at the Center of St. Joseph's Indian School campus, where we talk about issues that are central to Native American education today. Until next time, stay centered.